really pretty easy, but hard to figure out what it's asking you to do. I'm asking you, if I was asking you to solve for this letter, if I was asking you to get this by itself, what would you do? Well, what can you do with proportions to turn them into like an equation? How do I turn something like this into blah, blah, blah equals blah, blah, blah? What parts of a proportion are supposed to be equal? Okay. Does this help? What do I do with B and C? Multiply. So B times C should equal what? Should equal A times D. So if it says find C, that means I want to get C by itself. So who do I need to get rid of? C wants to fly solo. Who do we need to ditch? B. How am I going to get rid of B? Divide by B. Divide this whole thing over here by B. And this right here is your final answer. A times D divided by B. Okay. What else? 16. Okay. 16 seems a little bit difficult. You're going to see after we do it together why it's really pretty easy. But okay, so let's find the center. What do I do anytime I give you two shapes and I say find the center? Draw lines between what? Okay, so like here's the center, so I could draw a line between those two, right? The center of the circle, not the center of the size change. So I could draw a line between those two. The problem with this one is they don't have other points marked, okay? And it's kind of hard to say like this point goes with this point. So I would maybe try to go like straight down here and straight down here, okay? So those points should correspond to each other, and then you can connect those two. Okay. I could also go like straight up and straight up and connect those two. But what are you noticing about where that center is going to end up? It's on the edge. What else is true at that point right there? In the original picture before I drew my lines, what was special about that point right there? That's where the two circles touched, right? Anytime you have a size change where like one object is inside the other, or I'm sorry, where they share a point where it's like it shrunk into like one corner of the figure or something like that. Like look down at 17. If I did the size change on this one, the center would have to be right here. Because if a point stays in the exact same spot, that must be the center. Okay? Think back to when we did reflections. Remember how if the point was right on the line, it stayed in the same spot? It's kind of the same thing. If this point is the center, then that point's not going to move. Okay? Everything is going to like shrink in towards it. So this point right here is the center. And then it says to determine the K value. How do I do that? Where's somewhere I could measure to find that K value? Say it again. If that was an answer.
Huh?
Sorry, I thought you answered my question.
I just said the smaller one.
Okay, so I need to find two lengths that correspond from circle to circle. So couldn't I measure like from here to A prime and then measure from here to A? Like, isn't that the radius of the small circle and the radius of the big circle? So let's measure that. Anyone have a guess, by the way?
25.
Okay. Here I get right around 1 centimeter. From here to here, I get right around 2 centimeters.
What?
Okay. Now here's the thing. I had some people saying 2 and some people saying 0.5. How do we tell? Okay, look, the original one is this one. The new one is this one. So it went from being big to small. So do I want to do 2 divided by 1 or 1 divided by 2? 1 divided by 2, which is 0.5. Okay? Now, honestly, I would probably give you partial credit if you said 2, because you just went in the other direction. Okay? But when you look at it, you should be able to say, is that an expansion or a contraction? If it's an expansion, your K value should come out to be bigger than 1. If it's a contraction, your K value is going to be smaller than 1. Oh, and actually I wrote that in the wrong spot, didn't I? That's supposed to be it, 0.5 here. Okay? What else you want to see? From anywhere in this packet? Mike, every time you do that, I think you're raising your hand. It's freaking me out. Anything else in the packet that you're curious about?
Answer page number 1.
Okay, number 1?
Easy. No, do number 5.
That was way too easy.
Well, I'll just get you started on 1 in case you do have questions. Okay? For number 1, I would measure. Shh. Somebody who said it's easy, tell me what I do.
Well, you said it was easy. Go ahead. Tell me.
What?
What do I do for number 1?
Shrink it.
Oh, I know how to do it. Alright. Want me to come up there and do it?
You can just tell me.
Alright. So,
Wasn't meant to put you on the
P
spot. I was
is
just
so you connect all of them to P.
okay.
Good thing.
And then from X to P, 7.5.
Okay, that's what I'm getting to. So this is 7.5. And then what do you do with that 7.5?
Times by 10.
Okay, so I'm going to do 7.5 times my K value, which is going to be like 3.75, I believe.
79. Sure, yeah, that works.
I think it is.
No, that'd be 3.
Is that right? Okay. And then how do I measure? Starting from where?
Starting from P, or the P.
Okay, you want to start from P. Now on this one, because it's 1/2, it's not going to matter. Because if you go 1/2 this way and 1/2 that way, it's both going to land in the same spot. But if that was a different number than 1/2, it would make a difference. Okay, so you want to make sure you're measuring starting from P. So I'm going to measure we'll just go about like between 3.7, 3.8. 3.75-ish from P along that same line. Put a mark there, and that's going to be your new X prime. Okay?
Yeah.
Then we would do that with all 3 of the other points. So yeah, with this point, and this point. And you should get a figure that looks just like it, but a little smaller. Okay? It's going to look similar to that. Okay?
Rose up to the occasion.
What else you want to see? Yeah, nice job. What else from the packet you want to see?
5.
5? Okay. Important to pay attention with something like number 5, which direction you're going in. The way this is written, triangle ABC turns into triangle ADE. So ABC turns into ADE. Is that going to be an expansion or a contraction?
Contraction.
Yep, because you're taking the bigger triangle and turning it into a smaller triangle. So that's a contraction. So before I do any measuring, what do I know about what my K value should turn into? Okay, it's got to be smaller than 1, right? Something smaller than 1, so like a decimal. What do I measure to find out what K is? Which ones?
B, A, and B, B, and C, A, and C.
Okay. Be careful. This and this are not actually sides of the triangles, right? I would probably measure AD and AB, not BD. Does that make sense? I mean, I guess you could piece it together if you wanted to, and it doesn't matter which set of sides you go with. You could measure like these 2, or you could measure these 2, or you could even measure these 2. You just want it to be a pair of sides that corresponds. Technically, you only have to do 1 pair of sides, but I always do 2 just to make sure they're coming out about the same. So if I measure AD, I get like, oh, old lady eyes. Like 3.7. Do you agree with me? Someone else who's measured that maybe? And AB, I get like 5.5. And I want to do new divided by old. Because remember, your K value is always new over old. Which one of those am I calling my new?
A, D, E.
Yeah, this triangle is my new triangle. So I want to go with AD as being my new. So I would say 3.7 divided by 5.5. And I get like 0.67. And then what I would usually do is pick another one of those pairs to measure and just make sure it's coming out about the same. So, and it might not be exact because there might be a little bit of error in measuring, but like if I was to look at DE, that's like 1.7, 1.6 maybe. And BC is like 2.4. So then again, new divided by old would be 1.6 divided by 2.4. And I come out with, okay, so are we going to call these two close enough to each other, you think? That was pretty close.
Yes.
They would both round to 0.67, right? So yeah, your K value of 0.67 would be good. There is I do give a little bit of leeway here. I mean, not a ton, but enough to where if you call it a 1.7 and I call it a 1.6, that's okay. Okay. What else do you want to see? Anything else? No? You good? Okay. So I want to show you that I do now have up, oops, that's not what I want, on my website, under geometry, unit K, I do have the answer key. Okay? So if you go to unit K all the way down to the bottom, download file, I just put this up this morning, but this is the fully worked out answer key for this packet that you just did. Okay? Mrs. Merritt, and she did a really nice job keeping everything neat and tidy and color coding and all that. So, yeah. So check this out tonight. Okay, I would take a look at it. I would look at your answers compared to hers, and if you get something different, look at her work and see how it compares to your work. Okay, but please check answers tonight. Again, me putting it up there, I am well aware that you could go on and fill in all of the answers. Woohoo, you just won yourself 10 points that won't make an ounce of difference in your grade if you fail the test. Okay, so make sure that you're doing your own work first and then checking answers.